What if we could make recording videos the easiest part of your entire video content creation process? The idea is simple. When you've planned your videos and you're ready to film, the setup should not be the reason you don't do it. Everything should be ready to go, so all you have to do is turn things on and press record and go. That's the standard I use in my own setup, and that's what I help my clients set up as well. There are really four things that get in the way for most people when it comes to making videos. Once you fix these, recording really does become the easiest part of the whole process. One of the biggest problems I see when it comes to helping people set up the recording space is that they have a lot of things that need to be set up, or maybe they're set up, but they have to be moved around every time they want to film a video. For some people, that means just getting out a tripod or setting up their camera or their phone, or maybe getting some lights in place, getting a mic set up. For others, they have some of those things set up, but still need to move things around every time they want to film, because otherwise they're in the way of everyday life. And this applies whether you're using a camera or a phone. And with a phone, I think it's even worse because you have to get the phone in that little holder and get it positioned just right, and it's easy to be crooked. And if you're using the front-facing camera, which is the better camera, you can't even see yourself to check the framing. If you get a call in the middle of it, sometimes that can screw things up. Or even if you just want to use your phone for like notes or different things, you can't do that when you're filming with it. Whatever your situation is, there's likely a gap between I have videos that are ready to film and then actually pressing record to film them. And the bigger that gap is, the easier it is to just put videos off, or everything just takes more time and energy than it really needs to. So this is the first thing that I focus on with clients. We get a dedicated setup, so all you have to do is turn things on and press record. It doesn't have to be expensive. You don't need really high-end equipment. You just need the right equipment for your space, for your needs and your budget and your goals. And then it needs to stay set up so that we don't constantly move it around every time you have to film. Now, this used to be a major source of friction for me. Video is what I do for clients, and I was using my really high-end cameras and lights for making my own videos. But every time I wanted to film, it took like an hour, sometimes more, to get everything set up and dialed in, and then another 30 minutes or more to tear it down and put it away. It was such a waste of time and really annoying. So I bought a whole separate setup: camera, lights, mic, teleprompter, that just always stays set up on my desk, and I never have to put things up and take them back down. Now, that might sound excessive to buy a second setup, but it drastically reduced the friction for me, and now I don't waste all that time on setup and teardown anymore. So for me, and video is a crucial part of what I do, it was worth the investment. And recently, I even added smart plugs to my own setup so that all I have to do is press one button and my lights and my camera all turn on. It might sound a little petty, but every time I went to film a video, or even just using the setup for video calls, I had to go and flip on each individual light, turn on the camera, and it's just another little irritant, a little source of friction. So adding these smart plugs now, all I have to do is literally open the app, press a button, and it all turns on. That was honestly the last little bit of friction in my setup, and now it's gone. And this is an important point. You don't have to do all of this in one big step. You can take it in pieces and address things one at a time, just as you're able to. Once you've got equipment that's set up and always ready to go, the next thing that gets in the way for a lot of people is just the space itself. So whether it's figuring out how to make a functional room work for filming, or just wanting the background to look more professional, this one trips up a lot of people. Most of the time, the issue here is that the room you're gonna film in is a real room that gets used for other things. Not everyone has the luxury of setting up a space that's just dedicated for filming. So maybe it's your actual office where you do your work, which that's my case. Or maybe it's a spare bedroom or a den or just part of some other larger room. And you're trying to figure out how to make it work for video without taking over the space. Nobody wants a video studio set up permanently in their dining room. Or maybe your location is fine, but the background just doesn't look the way that you want, and you're not sure how to make it look more professional. I once helped someone set up their space, and they actually had a couple spaces in their house that they were considering. And one of them she really liked the look of, but it was their dining room. So that just wasn't going to work for leaving things set up. And the other room is a den sort of room. The family uses that a lot, but there was a corner that they wanted to set some things up that they could just leave it set up that wouldn't get in the way of using the room. And they just wanted it to look good for videos and then not require a lot of like moving things around every time they wanted to use it for recording videos or doing podcast interviews or things like that. So the solution is using the right camera angle and then the right lens so that only a small slice of the room is actually in the shot. Trying to use your phone or webcams or lenses that are too wide, just too much of the room is in the shot, and it's really hard to get the whole thing to look good if it's like a regular room that you use for other things. So spending some time getting the right setup for that room means that you can use that space for filming and it'll look good and also not lose the functionality of that room for real life. So once you know what's actually in the frame, you can then make that small area look great. and you don't have to decorate a whole room or do a whole bunch of construction or things. You really just have to focus on that little piece that's visible in the shot. Sometimes that's as simple as just adding a plant or a painting or something like that, kind of cleaning up the background in that spot. Might be adding other things to the wall for texture, like those wood strips you might see in people's shots or things like that. Or it can be as simple as just having a light that shines on the wall and adds a little bit of interest to an otherwise kind of blank looking wall. Once you've got that dialed in, now you've got a room that works for video and it stays functional for whatever that room is actually used for when you're not making videos. So you've got your equipment that's always set up and ready to go, your background looks good, and your room is still useful outside of video. But now when you look at your footage or listen back, something is off. Maybe the brightness or the color is inconsistent between videos, or even within the same video it changes. Maybe the audio just isn't great. You know it can look and sound better, but you're just not sure what needs to be done to get it there. That's what we need to fix next. The main source of these problems is usually using automatic settings on your camera or phone. So when you're using things like auto brightness or auto white balance or both of those things, the camera is constantly trying to adjust the settings to compensate for changes in the light. When it comes to video, there are some specific settings that we want to have set a certain way. And when the camera is set to auto, it changes those things, and that can hurt the quality of the video. If there's a window in the room, the weather can cause major inconsistencies between videos or even sometimes within the same video. The brightness changes, especially on partly cloudy days. Maybe a cloud goes by, or even if you move your hands and the light hits them differently, that can change the brightness. And then the camera is trying to adjust to keep the brightness consistent. The worst of it is when you go to edit footage like this, and then you end up with clips where the lighting or the color shifted dramatically between cuts, which is really distracting for the viewers. You can fix that with color correction when you're editing, but it's time consuming and annoying, and it's much easier to just address it with your setup, so that's not even an issue. The best way to fix that is to block the outside light with a curtain, so you can draw it, only when you need it, and then use manual settings on your camera so you can lock them in, and then they just stay there all the time, so it's always consistent. Now, I know going to manual settings on your camera can sound a little daunting, but it's really not as hard as you think. And once it's set, you never have to touch it again. Everything stays where it's at. Everything always looks good. And then it looks good, so you don't have to worry about it when you're filming. Now, on the audio side, if it just doesn't sound right, even though you're using a microphone, chances are good that you're either using the wrong kind of mic for your space, or it's just set up in the wrong position. There are some mics that can sound really good, but they're really meant to be used in a well-treated room with acoustic panels and stuff like that, which most people just don't have or even need. Switching to a different kind of mic that's not so sensitive to the room, or just moving your mic closer and into a better position, can make a really big difference in your audio quality. Either way, once all of your settings are dialed in, you don't have to think about it anymore. I know a lot of this can be overwhelming when you're not a video professional. And if you're finding that you need some extra help or just want to speed up the process and knock this out quickly, this is something that I help people with. We figure out the exact equipment you need for your space and your goals. We get it set up and dialed in all over a series of Zoom calls. If you're interested in that, I'll put a link down in the description where you can get some more info. So now your setup looks and sounds great every time. The last major source of friction that a lot of people deal with is the recording workflow itself. Things like getting the files off of the camera or your phone and onto a computer, whether that's for editing it yourself or getting it into some kind of cloud folder where someone else can edit for you. If you're using a camera that records to an SD card, which most do, you know how annoying that can be to have to mess with those cards. And if you're recording with your phone, you still have to get those files into your editing software or uploaded to some cloud service to get them to your editor. And then there's also battery issues. So if you're using a camera and batteries, you have to pay attention to your battery life so you don't run out of battery in the middle of the video. So now you're constantly thinking about that, and it's taking up bandwidth in your brain, taking you away from the video you're trying to make, or you'll accidentally talk to a dead camera. Nobody wants to do that either. So here's the solution for both of these issues. First, if you're using a camera, you can plug it directly into your computer using something called a capture card. It's literally like a plug and play device, and your computer sees that as a camera that it can use. And then you just need a piece of software like OBS or Ecamm Live or something similar to that. No more SD cards. Everything goes straight from the camera to the computer, and you don't have to transfer files or mess with cards anymore. And then for the battery life issue, you can plug the camera into what's called a dummy battery, which basically is just wall power for your camera. So the battery problem goes away. It never dies. It's not an issue. All of these things by themselves can seem a little bit small, but when you stack them up on top of each other, it can add up to a lot of friction. So it's worth looking at those and doing what you can to remove those. So that's how easy your recording process can be. You have dedicated gear that stays ready, a space that doesn't need a makeover every time you want to film, settings and lighting that's consistent so you don't have to worry about it. You know it's always going to look and sound good, and a recording workflow that makes your life easier and not harder. The whole goal here is to make the recording process easy so that's no longer a source of friction for you, so you can spend more time on the things that matter most to you. Now, what we've been talking about in this video, I call practical friction, but there are other types of friction that might be getting in the way of your video content, making it harder than it needs to be. You can click here to watch a video that I made that covers all 3 types of friction to help you figure out what to address next.